Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'd like to welcome you to my tutorial on the installation of MySQL Community Edition, MySQL Workbench, and the textbook files for Murach's MySQL Second Edition. So this tutorial is going to be of greatest use to those who are in my class. And there's a textbook that we're using. So let's just go to Amazon so that anybody else who finds their way here can find out the book that we're working with. So if we go to Amazon, and we want to look up Murach and MySQL. And here's the book here, Murach's MySQL Second Edition. And we're going to be using this in our class. And in order to do that, we need to do the install of all those things I mentioned. In order to do that, I'm following Appendix A from this book loosely. And I'm following it loosely because some time has gone by, which has given us some more time and some more releases of the product. And I want to just kind of do it the easiest way I know how for the point that we've come to, which is now January 2016. So that's where we are there. So we're doing this on Windows 7 64-bit, and we've got a pretty much up-to-date copy of this for the day that we're in. And I happen to know that of the products that we're trying to install, Community Server and Workbench, on Windows to run Workbench, you need some prerequisites pre-installed. And I know that from reading Appendix A and just from my experience here. So I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to go halfway down the first page in Appendix A that has the instructions for this. And I'm going to go to the section marked How to Install MySQL Workbench Prerequisites. And here is the URL that they send us to, dev.mySQL.com/resources/prerequisites.html. So I'm going to type that in. And that's going to take us to this web page for prerequisites for MySQL Workbench. And it's for a previous version. It's for version 6.2, and we're going to be using version 6.3. But I happen to know that the version that we're using still has these dependencies. And the other things that I know here are that the first of the dependencies has already been satisfied. So there are two listed. There's a Microsoft.NET framework for client profile. And I know I've done this before. I've done this before today, actually. And when I download this and install it, it says I already have it. But that might not be true for the version that you have of Windows. So you might want to try to do that download and install. And then the one I know that I need is this Microsoft Visual C++ 2013 redistributable package. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to say download. And you have to pick your machine architecture. And I want the one in the middle, x64. So I'm just going to make sure that's checked. And click my next button. Okay. And oddly enough, I had this happen the last time. It's trying to download the wrong file. It's trying to download the one for the ARM architecture, which I know I didn't ask for. And I knew to check because I got that wrong the last time. So let's try it again. This seems like it has a bug. So I'm going to check the box for x64 again and click on next. And now it's giving me the one with the right architecture. Probably a programming error. And I can click on the bottom of that dialog, Show All Downloads. And here is my x64 executable. Give it a double click. Say I can run it. Say I can run it again. Say I agree to the conditions. Say I can run it yet again. You have to be determined. That's for sure. And it says the setup was successful, and I can close this stuff. Okay? So I know now that I have both of the prerequisites that I'm going to need for MySQL Workbench from experience. I know I only installed one, but the version of the operating system update that I had included the second one. Okay, and I'm going to go to a place a little different from where Murach has you go. I'm going to go to mysql.org. Okay? And I see an option for MySQL downloads. I'm going to take that. And the first option I have is MySQL Community Server. That's what I want. Okay? And now I've had the best luck when I go and try the installation instructions. Okay, I know this seems a little bit roundabout, but trust me here. Click on this first link for installation instructions. And then, of course, 2.3, installing it on Windows. And right down here, there's a heading, Simple Installation Method. And that shows us a link to an installer. And we link on that. And we have to scroll down to get the version of the file that we want. So the version of the file that we want, I'm going to take the smaller of the two files, 1.6 megabytes. And I'm not going to worry that it says that it's 32-bit, because even though it's 32-bit, it's going to, I know from experience that it's going to give me the option to install the 64-bit version of the software, even though it itself is a 32-bit installer. So I'm going to click on download on the top file. And then I'm going to click on the link that says, no thanks, just start my download, because I'm very much signed up for accounts at Oracle. And it looks like it wants it to download a .msi file. That's just what we're looking for. And now we've got to go find it. So we're going to open up and go to Downloads. And I see the .msi file right there. I double click. Say Run it. And it asks me, do I want it to install on the computer? Yes, I do. Now, here's an interesting thing that happens. It runs about halfway through in the progress, and it gets stuck here. And if you don't know to look, down in the taskbar here, there's a flashing icon for a shieldish looking thing. And if I click on that, I'll find out that there's another dialog that's been waiting for me to say OK again. So I'm just going to click on yes. And now it's going to run the installer. Now, in previous attempts to do this, I didn't see that down there, and I waited forever. So I'm going to accept the terms of the license agreement, click on Next, and I'm going to recommend that you do a custom install. That's the last radio button. So we click Custom and Next. And now I want to install 3 pieces. I want to install Community Server. I want to install MySQL Workbench. And I would also like to install the utilities just because. So go down through the dialog for MySQL Server. And there are 2 options. The top one is the 64-bit one, which is the architecture that I have. So if that's what you have, take the 64-bit one. Otherwise, take the 32-bit one under it. And it turns out that MySQL Workbench is an application. So we go into Applications, MySQL Workbench, MySQL Workbench 6.3. And the top of the 2 options is the 64-bit one. And now I'm going to go over to the control, the right arrow control, and put Workbench in there. And then the last thing I want to get is the MySQL Utilities, which is an application as well. And open that up. And again, the top option is going to install the 64-bit version of the utilities. And so I've now queued up the 3 things I'd like to install, and now I'm going to just click on Next. And it says it's ready to download. So I'm going to click on the Execute button. And one of the interesting things I've seen when I've done this earlier today is that we don't always get a successful download and install on all 3 of these things right away. And so I'm going to go up. The 3rd one, the utilities, has installed. Then let's click the Try Again link on the right side for Workbench. And that seems to be downloading and installing now. And then I'm going to click the Try Again link for the first one, MySQL Server. And that seems to be cooperating now too. So there's something about this process that is error prone, but now it seems to be done. They all have these green icons with a check mark, so they look good. I'm going to click on Next. And next, now we're going to do some configuration. And for the most part, we're just going to take the defaults. I want it configured as a development machine. If you're in my class, that's what I would like you to do too. Port number 3306 is the standard port with which you communicate with MySQL Server. That looks fine. And the checked boxes look fine too. So we're just going to click on Next. And then we want to come up with a word for a password. In the Murach book, you'll see that he recommends a simple word that's easy to remember, and he recommends the word sesame, as in open sesame. I have another word that I use that I'm going to type in here. And it's going to tell me that the password is weak, but I don't really care. And the reason I don't care is that this is just for my development use. It's not really going to be exposed to other users. I have a token, kind of a password in there, and that's okay. The worst thing that can happen with security in this current setup is that I forget the password and I get stuck. So I'm going to click on Next. And here I'm going to take the default. It's going to set this up to run MySQL Server as a Windows service. That's what we want. We want it to start when we start the operating system. That's good. We want to use a standard system account. That's fine too. So we're going to click on Next. And now we have a list of things to be done, and we're going to do Execute. And they seem to be working away pretty well. And click on Finish. Configuration's complete, and then click on Next. And you'll notice that we have a check here for starting the Workbench after setup. And so since we have all the precursors installed, that sounds like fine. Let's just click the Finish button and see what happens. And here is our copy of Workbench, which you will notice has an icon of a cute little dolphin, which is the MySQL logo. And we're all set up, and we have configured an instance. We have it configured a connection to the local instance of the Community Edition server. And we can simply double click on this gray box, and it will try to do logging in, but we don't have that password yet. So type in your simple password, click the button that says Save in Vault, and say OK. And here you're going to see a normal view of a connected MySQL Workbench. And the panel that we're interested in is in the upper left. It's called the Navigator panel. And the very first link under Management is Server Status. So click on that. And you'll see that the server is up and running. Very, very healthy. So we got what we wanted there. Okay, what's next? Well, what's next is we need to add the files and set up the databases that come with the Murach book. If you want to look at what databases we already have, we only have a simple one. If you go back to the Navigator panel, the fourth section is Schemas, and it's only got one entry here, sys. And if we open it up, we can see the tables, and we open up that sysconfig. This is MySQL Server infrastructure. Okay, so this isn't a user-oriented database, and so we need to load those. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's minimize the Workbench, minimize this file thing, and then let's go to Murach.com. Let's go to their website. That's the website of the publisher. And for some reason, the first time you go here with this new copy of Firefox, it doesn't like the security certificate. So I'm just going to click on Advanced and not secure. Try loading using outdated security. And I think that works. Okay. And that's probably not a perfect fix, but it got the job done. And so now we need to find our way to the page for the book. So in the navigation bar, we have Shop Books. And we want Database Programming Books. And the third icon here is for our book, Murach's MySQL second edition. So we'll go to that. And there's a chance to buy it. And down here we have a bunch of tabs about this book, table of contents, free downloads. That's what we're looking for. And you can download a couple of free chapters. And then there are two versions of the files that go with the book. There's an exe file for Windows. That's the easiest one. That's what we're going to use. And then there's a zip file for use on OS X and Linux. And we're not going to have to use that. Now, we're going to have an odd thing because we're going to click and say we want to download. And it's going to ask us to register. And I've never found a way to get around this. Okay? So I'm going to register yet again with my friends at Murach.com. And I recommend that you do the same. I usually say that I don't want the emails because I get the emails and I like their emails. I'd like to know when they update their books and stuff, but I don't need to be on the mailing list yet again. Click I am not a robot, and it wants me to identify juice. So technically speaking, I think only that's juice. Let's see if they think only that's juice. Nope. They probably think that one of the left of it is also juice. Looks like a shake to me. And now I want to register. So I guess it wasn't a shake. Now, what's really weird is that we've now kind of gone through the security layer. Now we've got to go back to the same download page another time. So click the link for continue to download. Come down and find the tab for free downloads. Find the same link that you had, the exe file for Windows. And now when you click, it's really going to download. This is an odd way to do it, but that's the way to do it. And there's the file. I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to open my downloads directory, and there it is right there. So let me do a double click and run. And if you look at Appendix A, you'll see in the instructions are saying that we would like to install these files on the C drive in a directory named Murach, and that's where it wants to unzip it. So I'm just going to click the unzip button. It says it worked successfully. Close all that. Okay. Now, let's just take a look and make sure it's actually there. So I'm going to click on Computer, Local Disk. There's the Murach directory on C. The next directory level is MySQL. And there's a bunch of stuff here, but the one that we're going to run is DB setup. So we've got a bunch of .SQL files that are script files. And this is done in kind of a modular way. The one that we are going to run is create databases.sql. Okay, but we're not going to run it directly out of here. We're going to run it out of MySQL Workbench. So we're done with the browser. Let's bring up Workbench again. Okay. And you will notice here to the right of the Navigator panel, we have some tabs. We have a query one that was there in the beginning. We also have that server status tab. I'm going to close those. Okay. So how do we get the kind of tab that we want? Well, if we go up to this toolbar area, we'll see the second icon has an opening folder, and that's to open an SQL script. So I'm going to click on that. And now I'm going to navigate to the C drive, Murach, MySQL, DB setup, highlight Create Databases, click the Open button, and we'll see that we've created a tab that is an editor for that script. And this is a complete script that creates 3 databases that come with the book. It creates the databases, it creates the tables, and it inserts all the data that we're going to need to use. And up here in the toolbar for the editor panel, we can see 2 lightning bolts. And the leftmost one will run the selected portion of the script, or everything if nothing is selected. And that's what we want. We don't have anything selected. We want to run the whole script. So click the lightning bolt. And if we look down, an output panel comes up, and we see a lot of green circles with check marks in them that says that things ran well. Okay, so we have loaded the data. Okay, now that's good, but wouldn't it be nice to confirm that we loaded the data? Okay, so how do we do that? Well, let's go back to the top left to the Navigator panel. And you will remember that the last section of it said schemas. And it's still showing just the schema sys, so that's not everything. So to the right of the word schemas is a little twirly update icon, refresh. So we're going to refresh it. And you can see that it has added 3 databases that came with the book, OM, EX, and AP. Okay, can we look at those? Well, you would think we'd be able to look at them right away, but the fact is, when we open them, it says that they're being fetched. Okay, so it does take some time for things to happen. So the tables are being fetched for OM. Let's look at EX. They're there already. I think that EX is a much simpler database, so it takes less time to build. And then AP is more complex, so that takes some time to build. So it's going to be easy. It's going to be easiest for us to look at EX as a way of showing that things are actually here and working. So to look at the tables, I click on the little triangle to the left of the tables part. And you'll see that we have a bunch of them, including customers. So let's click on customers. And you'll notice that when you get over top of one of these rows, you get out to the right of the name of the table, you get 3 icons, an information icon, a wrench settings icon, and a table-like view contents icon. So I'm going to click on the rightmost one to view the contents. And what happens is we get to view the contents, it puts together a query that selects all the rows, select asterisk from customers in the EX database, and you can see the data that's in the customers table. Okay, let's try that for one other one. Let's look at projects. So let's go to the rightmost icon for that. And here are projects. Okay. So we have, we've installed the databases. A couple of them are still loading, but the EX one is already working. We probably want to leave our machine up a bit so that these other 2 databases get built for when we want to use them. In the meantime, we can do a little bit of work with EX as a way to just to play with the product. So that is it. We have installed a community server. We have installed Workbench, and we have installed the files from Murach's MySQL 2nd edition, and you're ready to learn. So I'm going to say bye until next time.